Welcome to the Blue Gold Sports Podcast. I'm Ryan Roddy, joined by Corey Moore, and it's another game week for West Virginia football, but all these other sports are also going on at the time. West Virginia is coming off a loss to Baylor, 49-35. Garrett Green returned as starter, and he had himself an okay game, I would say. I mean, on the ground, obviously very productive. In the passing game, not as productive. He completed less than 50% of his passes. Still threw for two touchdowns, but also had an interception, which Baylor was able to score points off of. So let's just start with that. I mean, Garrett's back. What do you think, Corey?
I mean, Garrett's always fun to watch. As you said, he had a good game on the ground. I mean, he's always exciting whenever he can go for those big runs and stuff. But what a lot of WVU fans want to see, and what I would have wanted to see from him is actual wins, translating that to more versatile playing. They have a very deep roster. We've said that since day one. You need to be able to utilize that. And it truly did feel like Nico Marchiol was making more use of that in his two starts than Garrett Green did against Baylor the other night. So I think if you're Neil Brown, I think you need to transition, maybe look towards benching Garrett Green for this last game of the season here and in a bowl game appearance if you need to. I don't know if that's the right call. I'm not saying that's the only call, but for me as a fan, it kind of seemed like that would be the move because again, as fun as he is to watch, it's not translating to good play from the entire team offensively.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. Nico was fun to watch. I mean, obviously still undefeated as a starter. Garrett Green as a starter, 3-5 this season. I mean, so that's something you just kind of like make note of. It's a stat that's kind of like brought out. But with senior day coming up, I just don't see it happening any like against UCF at least. I mean, Texas Tech still in play, but Garrett Green playing his last game as a Mountaineer on Saturday, so we'll see how that goes. And just sad news out of the Baylor game, Traylon Ray's injury, just absolutely devastating. Prayers for him and his recovery, but so that brings the opportunity for a young receiver to step up. Ray himself is fairly young, a sophomore. I think you'll see more Rodney Gallagher and uh blanking on his name. Day Farmer. Sorry about that. So those two should be more in the mix, I'd say. And yeah, Jaden Bray's gonna be out again this week. I mean, he's been out for a while now. I believe Neil also ruled out Aubrey Burks for the rest of the season, so that's something else to keep note of. I mean, yeah, so West Virginia is obviously at an interesting point right now, 500 on the season. They need one more win to become bowl eligible, and they have two more games left. So, what are your thoughts on it all?
I mean, going back to Traylon Ray's injury first and foremost, I mean, obviously that's a huge hit for West Virginia, but one of the things that WVU hasn't been great at this whole year is necessarily finding a guy and then continuing to get to them the whole game, which in some ways is a good thing if you're spreading out your playbook to a lot of different targets and things like that. But it really seems like there was never truly a guy that was getting enough targets from Garrett Green whenever they're playing well and things like that. So honestly, I mean, even this last game, you only saw three receptions from Traylon Ray. It's not like you're losing a ton from him not being there in terms of having viable options. Because I mean, you can double down on a guy like Hudson Clement. You can even double down on Cole Taylor, who gets more of those intermediate passing range shots. So I think they can definitely recover as far as that goes, but like you said, that's a huge hit for them. So offensively, I think you just need to be able to find what works and get some scoring together. Defensively, I mean, again, Aubrey Burke's not being back, and you have other injuries like that. This defense has kind of been in shambles the whole year. I mean, for lack of a better word, they just haven't been great this whole time. So at this point, if you're Neil Brown, you need to kind of double down on the offense and make sure that if you find something that works, that you're going to keep doing that. And it needs to be a game where you're outscoring. Because even in that game against Baylor, where Baylor scores 49 points on you, it didn't really feel like West Virginia couldn't have just simply outplayed them offensively if everything went well. I mean, no points scored from West Virginia or Baylor in the third quarter. I mean, that can't really happen if you're looking at a team that doesn't have a great defense. You're constantly changing possession, things like that. You need to be able to outscore offensively. So I think that needs to be the main focus when you're playing against UCF and when you're playing against Texas Tech these next couple weeks.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, the defense, like you said, they haven't been great all year, specifically in the passing game. Baylor had over 500 total yards against West Virginia in that win. But now West Virginia's playing a UCF team that started the year kind of hot, but recently not so great. Coming off a bye week, UCF is, and they are 4-6, I believe, if I'm getting that right. Yeah. And it all starts for them with their running back, RJ Harvey. He's one of the best in college football. Right aside Ashton Genty. Nobody's on Genty's level, but RJ Harvey is definitely on that tier below, I would say. So, I mean, West Virginia run defense is definitely going to be a point, but don't uh don't count out the passing game as well.
Yeah, and I mean, if you want to talk about outscoring and just trying to beat them offensively, UCF is a team that can score points. I mean, they dropped 31 in their last game against Arizona State, 56 in their win over Arizona. Obviously, Arizona didn't play too well in that game, only 12 points themselves. But I mean, this is a team that can score a lot offensively. They have a decent quarterback at their helm. They have decent options in terms of their offense. So this is a decently put together team, even though their record isn't exactly what they would want it to be. And it's similar to West Virginia, where West Virginia is built well, but they're not necessarily always getting the results that they would want. So if you're Neil Brown and you're coming in, you need to make sure that your team is solid, that they're good mentally in terms of their chemistry and with each other, and that they know exactly what the game plan is always going to be. I mean, with some sorts of coaching staff changes the past few weeks, that might not be something that was amazing going into Baylor. You're coming off a couple of traveling games, you're coming off of a big coaching staff change from a few weeks ago. So maybe you weren't ready in terms of mindset, in terms of everyone being on the exact same page for Baylor. That can't be the case against UCF. This needs to be a big win focused on for getting bowl eligibility and just for having something that West Virginia can be proud of ending this season, even if it's not going to be Big 12 championship bound anymore, like they thought maybe they could have. You got to take the wins that you can get. If you're Neil Brown and you are looking to continue your position here next year, then you need to end off this season on a good run and just a high point in terms of everything being built together and seeming like a well-made roster that can work and that can work for years to come. Because that's also how you're going to get players to want to come back. That's how you're going to get a Jaheim White to want to come back to your team whenever, maybe he's considering other options at this point. So you really need to make sure this team is solid going into next week and that everything just presents well and works as a team to actually get results too.
Yeah, I mean, a win here on Saturday would mean a lot for the fans, for the seniors. Like I said, it's senior day. I mean, some notable seniors have been with West Virginia their whole careers. Sean Martin, Wyatt Milam, Garrett Green. So West Virginia has only won 2 games at home this season. One against FCS Albany, and the other one against Kansas, which fans were not a ton of fans stayed. There was a weather delay. So, I mean, I don't, there's no doubt in my mind that fans would love to just sing Take Me Home Country Roads at Milan Puskar Stadium one more time this year. And it's just like you said, it's like for Neil Brown, his job. I mean, we don't know the future with his position. I mean, he was extended after last season, but still, I mean, in this era of college football, you have to produce. It's like there's no, especially in the Power Four conferences, there is no margin for error. West Virginia, one of the only teams since 2019 not to be ranked in the AP poll. I mean, that's not something that you should be proud of, obviously, but it's just you got to you got to show improvement. You can't really flatline or plateau, and you definitely can't get worse. So in this era of college football, you just got to step it up. But I want to change focus now to the men's basketball team. Last night, a big win over Iona. It was totally defense all throughout for West Virginia. They also hit the three ball 15 times, which is the most since I want to say 2018. And they just starting to look more like a team each game. Obviously, that game against Pittsburgh was upsetting, but what did you see from this squad?
I mean, obviously, Iona is a very different team than Pittsburgh was, and than they expected them to be, even. So, I mean, I'm not surprised that they got as good of a win as they did last night. But overall, it's a great thing for Darian DeVries' team. Coming off of Pittsburgh, I mean, he admitted in that press conference after that game that they just didn't have the right game plan, and allowed Pitt to really destroy them from beyond the arc. So that's something that obviously they weren't gonna let Iona do the same things. So it seemed like they were a little bit better scouted. They were ready for them, and also, I mean, again, the skill gap, maybe the talent gap was a little bit different as well. But this is a good energy game for West Virginia coming in and scoring a lot of points at home, getting things going. I mean, the West Virginia fans, unless they traveled to the Backyard Brawl, which I mean, a good amount of people definitely do that. The main fan base that is at home, though, they haven't seen a loss from Darian DeVries yet. So that's a positive thing. I mean, we're talking about keeping fan engagement for football and things like that. Right now for men's basketball, there's no real worries in terms of fan engagement and wanting to come back to games and things like that because they've continued to show the product that was advertised. We have players that can shine and they have a good team size wise, they have a good team shooting wise. They can beat a lot of other teams in a lot of different aspects. You know, every night it can be a different thing, and I think we're going to see that as the season goes on where you need to target different things defensively, different things offensively, and you can see different parts of the game of basketball be played well by this West Virginia squad. So I think last night was a good show of that versatility and what they can do if all of those elements come together well.
Yeah, and a player who really performed well last night against Iona was Javon Small, the guard. 23 points, 5 assists, 5 rebounds, 4 steals, and a block. I mean, just completely stuffing the stat sheet there as a guard. I think he only turned over the ball once too, which when you have the ball in your hands most of the time, I'd say that's a pretty impressive feat, only turning the ball over once. Obviously, you'd like to turn it over not at all, but I mean, it happens. It's the game of basketball. So it just the team is going to keep revealing itself as the season goes on. Who's going to be that guy that steps up? Who's going to be that guy that maybe isn't as good as we would have thought, or maybe has their struggles at times, but can step up, if they get more opportunities. For me, freshman Jonathan Powell, he's been very impressive so far. The way he shoots that three ball, comes into the game yesterday in 4 minutes, 11 points, made three threes in a row, did not miss. Also had a dunk to kick it off his scoring. And another freshman, KJ Tenner, although he wasn't that notable on the stat sheet last night, he's playing well for a freshman as a guard. I mean, so for these guys, it's giving great outlook to the future of this program.
I mean, off the bench, I mean, Tenner's doing more than enough from last night. I mean, 3 for 3 from the field, that's your job. That's what you're supposed to do in those 14 minutes. I'm very happy with how KJ Tenner played. But as you said, Jonathan Powell is the one that's kind of making headlines a little bit right now. He's great size for college basketball, 6'6" as a guard. He's versatile position wise because of that. The one thing that isn't versatile is his shot selection. Right now, he's shooting a lot from beyond the arc, and it's working for him. I mean, even at Pittsburgh, it was working great. He was the team's leading scorer. But I would personally want Jonathan Powell, if I'm a coach, to take a little bit of more shots, especially as a freshman, if he's going to be on this team for the next couple of years. I don't want him to be uh, pigeonholed as just being a 3-point shooter because I mean you saw he had a dunk. I mean, granted that wasn't a fast break, but he can score inside. He's capable. I want him to not be afraid to draw contact inside either, get to the line a little bit. But it seems like just way too many of his shots are like way too high of a percentage of his shots are 3-pointers. I mean, 6 of his 7 shots last night were 3-point shots. So maybe a little bit different things you would want to see in terms of his development as a freshman. But overall, the product is great. I mean, the result is exactly what you want it to be from a guy like that. So I think as long as his versatility grows and things like that, it will be great. As for the starting lineup, I mean, you already talked about Javon Small. He's giving you exactly what you need. Another guy that I want to call out, Amani Hansberry. I think he had a pretty solid bounce back game after kind of messing things up in Pittsburgh by having that flagrant foul right at the beginning of the game and then fouling out himself with 10 minutes left. I mean, last night, 23 minutes, he had 10 points. He went 4 for 7 from the field, 2 for 4 from three, and he's just a solid presence on a team that has a starting lineup of mostly guards, mostly forwards. He's really that one big in the starting lineup, even though he's not really a true center. So I think he showed himself well as an anchor last night. Got 9 rebounds, and then he played well defensively as well, grabbing a block and 2 steals. So I was pretty happy with Amani Hansberry, and I like the energy that he brings to the team as well. I think he's definitely a great addition to this squad with Darian DeVries.
Yeah, like you said, he's not a true five. He's a four, 6'8", but he's doing his job. 9 boards last night, and somebody I like coming off the bench is Eduardo Andre. He's a true five. He can block those shots. He can get those rebounds, and I think that down the stretch he'll definitely help this Mountaineer squad. And now shifting things to women's basketball. I mean, are they not fun to watch? They are. Mark Kellogg's style of basketball is so impressive. I mean, those that woman team just always forcing turnovers, always hitting the big shots, it seems. And this season they've outscored every single one of their opponents by 20 or more points, or 20 plus points. I think the closest was Texas A&M, and I think that was about 22-point margin. Um, they've forced 20 or more turnovers in every game. They're one of the top teams in Division 1 women's basketball that in forcing turnovers. But you got Jordan Harrison out there. She's been so impressive so far this season. Last year as a sophomore, transferring with Kellogg from SFA Austin. So she's getting more experienced in these Power Four conferences. So not much more to say about that. What do you have to say about this women's team?
I mean, there's nothing happening right now that shouldn't have been expected based off of last year. I mean, you talk about forcing turnovers. They had 3 players last year that averaged 3 steals per game or more. I mean, and obviously one of those gone, one of those people is gone with Lauren Fields being out of the picture. But this is just a style of play that Mark Kellogg plays with, and his teams really seem to respond to exactly what he wants and what he coaches them as because they're never losing energy. I mean, you can even go back to their home backyard brawl about a week and a half ago at this point. I mean, they didn't lose energy the whole way through, and they continued to put pressure on. They knew exactly what their job was at any given moment, regardless of what the score might be, regardless of what teammates they have out there. Because that's another thing. This is a team that's very deep. I mean, you have a lot less minutes coming from some pretty solid players, whether that be a Tiers Moore, whether that be a Danelle Argbabu. I mean, you have some solid players. You can really reach into your depth there. And Mark Kellogg gets a really nice opportunity to reach into his depth because his team gets such great leads very quickly. I mean, you can keep things tight for a little bit in the first quarter, but by halftime, it's all West Virginia by then because West Virginia just never lets its foot off the gas, regardless of what time it is in the game, what's going on like that. So it's just all pressure, all energy, and I think there are a lot of really great players on this team, especially the new additions that bring some of that energy. I mean, we can talk about Sydney Shaw getting ejected and things like that, but it's definitely a form of energy that got added to this team. Another really big source of energy that is new is Riviere. I think she's a great addition in terms of size, being an anchor, and having energy there with the team. So I really like those new additions to a system that was already built, already set in place after last season that unfortunately ended with a loss to Iowa in the NCAA tournament. I think they can make a run to go a little bit further this year because I mean, ranked 13th overall right now in the nation, and I don't see that going down anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, completely agree with you. They're gonna be fun to watch throughout the season. Obviously, right now, not as tough as opponents. I mean, obviously, Texas A&M, SEC team, and then Pitt, an ACC team. But I like what Kellogg's doing with his bigs. Obviously, he starts fifth year senior Kylie Blackston, and she's a sharpshooter. She can make those threes, but then you'll see a more Riviere, like you said, she's a great player, and then you'll see freshman Jordan Thomas, and that's something that I think that West Virginia is sort of lacking last year, like that true big that can go up, get rebounds, lay it in. Like I feel like Blackson likes to play more on the perimeter. She can grab a rebound or two when she gets the opportunity, but Jordan Thomas and Riviere are just boxing out, grinding out for those rebounds. So I think that those were great additions. Riviera came from a community college down in Florida, Southwest Florida, I'd want to say, somewhere around there.
Mm. And especially in the Big 12, where you have a team like Iowa State with Audie Crooks, I mean, you need to have that bit of an anchor. I mean, I remember last season, whenever they were going against Iowa State, Mark Kellogg kind of leaned on Arik Babu a little bit to provide size. I mean, she's 6'4", she's bigger than Blackson is in terms of frame as well. But now you have not just Arik Babu, who's honestly kind of at the bottom of the depth chart in terms of bigs. You have two other solid, just big presences that can play with the best of them in terms of that aspect of the game. And you can also get a true skill player with Blackson who has a little bit more finesse, can get inside and can get hot, as you said, in perimeter. Texas A&M, she was lights out from three. So you have a lot of different ways that you can tackle the game because of these new additions and because of just getting better as a team overall.
Yeah, and they'll take on Lafayette tomorrow, Friday at the Coliseum. I failed to mention this. West Virginia's next contest is against number three Gonzaga, so that'll be fun. The battle for Atlantis. And just another team I want to highlight here is the men's soccer team currently playing in the NCAA tournament against North Florida. Last time I checked, they were up 2-0. I'm not sure if they closed it out by this point. I'd assume so, most likely. But Corey, you've been at the forefront covering them. What do you have to say about this squad?
Yeah, I mean, even though football might be a little disappointing, I mean, with the two teams we just talked about and men's soccer, I mean, this is an exciting time to be a West Virginia fan. Women's soccer just lost about a week ago at this point in the NCAA tournament, but they had a solid showing as they always do with head coach Nikki Izzo Brown. But now this is Dan Stratford's time to kind of make things happen. WVU did win in the first round against North Florida just now. 2-1, and that's coming off of a Sun Belt Conference victory both in the regular season and in the postseason. They are the double conference champions there, which honestly is a little bit of a headliner in itself because of where they actually ended up seeding in the tournament. A lot of fans, a lot of energy placed into men's soccer right now because they are not really happy with where the team got seeded for the tournament, especially considering that they got seeded behind Marshall, who they just beat in the Sun Belt Conference championship in penalty kicks. So the fact that West Virginia is an unranked team, they didn't get a first round bye there. I think that puts a lot of fire behind both the team and again the fans as well. I mean, even if there aren't as many seats at Dick Bless Stadium as there would be at a Malone Puskar or at the Coliseum, these fans do care. It does matter to the school because people were heated whenever they didn't get the seat that they deserved. So the fact that the fan base and that the students are kind of rallying behind this soccer team is going to be a great thing for this NCAA tournament run. Can't wait to see it continue. I believe their next match now is going to be on the 26th. So, I mean, it's a break for students, but I'm sure they'll still draw in pretty good crowd if that game is in Morgantown.
And that's going to do it for us. A lot revolving around West Virginia sports right now. So definitely keep up with Blue Gold Sports for all your West Virginia sporting news. And have a good one, everybody.